It's lovely to see so many names popping up on my screen and having you with us. Would love to hear from you in the chat, just to share your name, where you're from, and maybe what you do. It would be lovely just to hear from who's on the call today. My name is Debbie Venables, and I am from Let's Talk Talent, and I'm really looking forward to sharing some really great insights from our client experience and all my years in HR, organizational development and learning and development with you. And please, this is your session. I'd love for you to pop questions in the comments or in the chat, but it's really an opportunity for us to share. Backstage, I have to introduce the team. I've got Lydia all the way from South Africa supporting me today. So she's going to pop up the presentation for us in a moment. But it's really going to be a good session. So she'll help us field any questions. If you ask for links to anything, she'll be popping those through to you as well. But yes, it's absolutely cool, wonderful to have you with us. Lydia, if I could ask you just to pop the presentation up, that would be great. Lovely. Well, let's kick off. I see we've got quite a few people online already, so it really is good to be online and connecting. So what are we here for today? We want to know more about smarter investments using skills data and AI. Isn't that just the buzzword at the moment? And it really is about those transferable skills that we're talking about. Those skills are going to set us up for those careers of 2030 and beyond. And it's so much of what my clients are talking about on a daily basis with me. For those of you joining us for the first time, Let's Talk Talent is all about supporting our clients in terms of keeping and growing brilliant people. We really do believe at our fundamentals that everybody has potential, but the potential to do what is the big question. And how do we build talent development, talent management processes across the whole employee life cycle, just to make sure that we tap into that potential and make sure that people have the opportunities to be brilliant in themselves. So yes, it's really great to be able to share all of our experiences with you. What are we going to chat about today? I'm sure you've all signed up because of the title, but today is about what data tells us that your gut instincts can't. How do we rely on that? And really, this is the way of the future. We are having to justify a lot more as HR professionals, but how do we get our data to tell us those stories, even though we just know it? What are those tools that we can use to shape and plan our delivery and make sure that our investments are smart? We're going to talk a little bit about a real world example. One of our clients where we've used skills data and the different approaches we could have taken so that you've got some insights into what you could potentially do, and then how to make the business case for an L&D investment. So I hope that it's got everything in there that you're looking for. But if there isn't, there's always the opportunity to give us a shout and we can have a chat. Right, let's move forward. I haven't seen anybody pop in the chat where they're from or anything, so please, we'd lovely to hear from you. If you could pop in the chat where you're from and what roles you've got. Okay, so let's start off with a quick poll. So Lydia's going to pop that up for us, and we're going to just explore a little bit about which of these areas do you currently use your skills data for? Do you actually use the data to inform your L&D investment? Okay, we've got one answer in, a couple. Skills building workshops and external courses, yes. 7 or 8 answers in already, very interesting. Great interest. Right. So far, it's around leadership development as our majority. I'm just going to give it a couple more moments to give the rest of our audience an opportunity just to come back on this one. So we're using skills data really around our leadership programs and our external courses. I see that one's crept up there and they're pretty much even now on those ones. Oops, one extra for external courses. That external or that skills data that we bring in from our organizations really gives us so many awesome tips and clues about what is really needed and what's really going to have an impact in our businesses. And we're going to explore that a little bit later as well. But thank you, really great engagement there. And it's lovely to see that you are looking at the skills data that's available in your business. The landscape of learning and development has completely shifted. In 2021, we knew that there was a whole lot of different apps, there was a whole lot of different access points that we could go into. And yes, that picture at the end there does show us the global learning landscape. But how has that changed with the introduction of AI tools, which are tapping into that type of information so much faster? So our employees are no longer going into apps. They're just having a chat with their favorite Claude or their Bob or whatever they call their favorite AI tool. And they're getting those answers as quickly as possible. It's making the access to learning and development so much faster and so much more effective. So what do we have to take into consideration when we are looking at how we are investing in our L&D overall? But before we get there, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. How far along are you in using AI in your learning and development? A lot of people are at different stages, and it's always important to kind of gauge where we're at in terms of that. Training people on using AI responsibly is definitely taking the lead on that one, and using AI for L&D decisions and content. Interesting statistics coming through. It's great to see the insights from the audience. Yeah, I'm going to give you a couple more moments just to fill out your responses there. Okay, so the leader on that one is using AI for L&D decisions and content. So that's how far we are in terms of using it to inform our L&D. That's definitely the leader there. What we're also finding is not only are people using AI to inform those decisions, but people are really focusing their training and their learning and development on how to use tools, how to ask the questions, how to be responsible when using the tools. But there's a peripheral skill set that goes around that, which is about how to use it in a way that is going to add meaning. And there are certain skills, leadership skills, things like our critical thinking, decision-making, critical reasoning, all of those types of skills, which really need to be honed when we are using these tools so that we don't end up just only focusing on what comes out and not actually making sure that we're asking the right questions or solving the right problems. So some of those core transferable skills are things that we're seeing needs to still be focused on in terms of that development. So it really is great to be able to touch in and use our AI, use our skills data just to tap into what those real issues are, what those real skills needs are. So thank you for sharing your insights there. The key is to make our learning sticky. When we're putting learning and development strategies in place, when we're rolling out and investing in learning, often they're one-hit wonders. We go in, we run a course, and people come back going, oh, that was a nice morning out of the office, or we know that the learning has to stick. And how we build that into the process of learning and development is where we're going to get that big return on investment. AI has now really enabled us just to adapt those learning pathways to make sure that people can access that information a lot faster, and they can go back and really keep touching on those learning points. And it helps individuals retain that information in a way that suits them, obviously with the learning that AI has in terms of how we learn, how we communicate, etc. But the key is, how do we build a strategy, a learning and development strategy that makes sure that we use these tools, but at the same time, we're also tapping into the things that make that learning sticky so that we do bring about that cultural change that we want within our organizations. So what is skills data and why does it matter? Our skills data is a lot of structured information about what our team members can and can't do. And there's so many naturally occurring sources of this information in our organizations. We just need to know how to build the story, how we build the links between all the different data that comes out, engagement surveys, exit interviews, we've got our retention statistics, we've got our performance review data. But how are we being smart with collecting that data to build the story of what it is that we need to proactively shift to have a credible return on investment? And it's not about manufacturing, because we've got all the information. It's not about building a rhetoric that isn't there. We've just got to start honing those skills within ourselves as HR professionals to understand what it is that we need to focus on and how those statistics can tell us the stories that we need to, or the things that we need to focus on. But it helps us prioritize our investment. If we can start showing the clear links between the learning and how it is positively or negatively impacting business performance, we can start building that business case in a lot more credible ways. But we've got the data. How do we use it? We do assessments, we do 360s, we do engagement surveys, we've got performance data. Those of you who are running your LMSs, your learner management systems, and your LXPs, etc., there is so much data in there. We've just got to be a little bit smart in terms of how we tap into that data. And we can do role benchmarking. There's so much data out there that we can use to start seeing where we are relative to the markets, relative to our competitors. And that's where AI and skills data really step up for us and help us add credibility to that gut feel that we've got already. So it's a superpower. We just need to tap into it. So how is the AI, is AI changing that? It helps us do that skills gap analysis at scale and so much faster. We've just got to know the right things to say, to do, and we've got to have that critical reasoning, that problem-solving ability within ourselves to know what pain points to pick on or what things to ask so that we get the correct and the real stories. It helps us individualize and personalize those learning pathways. We can start seeing trends. Once we know what the trends are, we can then do it by departments, by individuals. We can do it by role, job families. We can do it by so many different elements that it helps us prioritize where our biggest impact areas are in our business. We'll know who are the ones that are the direct revenue generators versus how does somebody in the back office, for example, in a business who isn't necessarily customer focused or customer facing, how do they impact the bottom line as well? AI is definitely helping us with content creation and curation, but it is about making sure how we make sure that the content fits our organizations. And we're seeing that a lot of the clients we're working with at the moment want us to come in, not just bring in generic content, but how do we customize it to answer those key business problems? How do we build in those scenarios? How do we build in that business savvy that is needed to transform the behaviors that are taking place in the business, to bring around that measurement of the ROI as well? AI really helps us track that engagement. It helps us track our completion rates, and it starts building those links for us. It starts learning from how we bring the data together to make sure that we are telling those stories. But if we're not sure of what to measure, then we're going to miss the boat in terms of proving to the business that our L&D investment is really paying for itself. And it does. There's so much data out there that really does create that business case for us. But we also need to think a little bit about the modern learner. Across the generations, we all learn differently. How we take information in, how we process information, how we learn, how we prefer to get information through to us. But what stands true across all of the generations is that 70% of our learning really takes place through daily experiences. How we interact on the job every single day, how we learn from other people, how that peer learning is impacting how we don't make the same mistakes, how we pick up tips and tricks, sometimes bad habits as well, but those are all part of the learning process. We learn and we listen, and we pick up on things. And even in a remote environment, we're still picking a lot up with things like Teams, with Zoom chats, all of those sorts of things. Those are creating the opportunities for us to learn from one another. 20% of our learning comes from others as well. How we have our coaching sessions, how we have mentoring programs, etc. Important that we make sure that 90% of what we learn on the job and how we coach is really embedded into our L&D strategies as well. And often we take those things for granted and we only focus on that 10%, which is the formal learning. And the key that we're finding with our clients around that 10% is how do we transform that 10% that it can impact what we're doing in the job and how we keep that learning alive with our employees, but also how do we keep the managers engaged so that they can start embedding and coaching in the correct ways to build that real learning culture. And we really are doing some awesome stuff with our clients around that. Employees think about one thing: will this training help me now? A lot of the time we don't necessarily think about the future skills, but we have to make sure that we keep things relevant for now. Otherwise we're going to disengage, because we are in a period of time where we've got so much information at our fingertips. We have so much information being thrown at us from all different directions. So the key for us is always to look at what is practical. Let's get practical. And using the skills data to really pinpoint what those practical things are that we need to do here and now, that will also set us up, and that's the balance in our L&D roles, is how do we focus on the things that need to happen today that will keep us prepared for the future. But we need to make sure it's concise. We're finding those long, drawn-out programs are really not cutting it anymore. Those micro-bursts or micro-learning opportunities are really what's hitting the sweet spot in terms of getting the information to individuals, building the skills in the moments. AI can really help us identify when those micro-bursts of skills development need to really happen. And it does help us understand the impact of all of those as well. We also need to speak the language. We need to speak the language of our employees. And the skills data tells you what the language is of each team. There's always subcultures within our businesses. How do we tap into that language so that when we're delivering our messages, when we're delivering our training and our development, we make sure that we're speaking the language so that people connect with it, they understand it, they feel like it is for them. Once people feel like it's for them and they know that it's something that they can practically implement, but they've got it in just the right sizes, the probability of them implementing it is so much higher. And that's what we want. We want individuals to apply what they've learned. We don't want them just to have a really nice day at the office to meet a few new people. It is really key to make sure that we tap into that. Why? Because it helps us increase productivity. Productivity comes from engagement. Engagement impacts our employee satisfaction. If people feel that what they're learning ties in with how they master their skills, how they've got purpose in their roles, and how they can collaborate and work across different areas of the business, the higher the morale. Bigger our retention. We're able to sit down and do proper career planning with individuals. We build the opportunity for our talent to be mobile across different areas because we start focusing on what are those transferable skills that are available in each of our departments, our functions, because no longer are we just in a pure functions. We've got those skills that can help us pivot and create those lovely squiggly careers. And if people feel that they've got the purpose and they've got the mastery and they've got the expertise and the experience and exposure, we know from all of our experiences, and we've got some really great examples from clients as well, where it's impacted high performance. So don't underestimate the impact of really getting your training and development correct in terms of all of those good things. And that's what we need to build into our business cases. But it's time for us to have a bit of a chat with you again. So if you've been or how long have you been using any skills data to inform your L&D decisions? Is it new? Have you been using it for a while? I'd love to hear from you. You're not using it at the moment. Are you currently doing it now, a little bit longer? Okay. Majority of our audience so far are only starting to use it now or currently using it. Okay. How you tap into it is so crucial in the processes. Excellent. Just a couple more minutes. Lovely. Right. So quite a few people are saying you've never used the data. Oh, well, you're in the right place. It is something that is key to what we do in everything that we do with our clients is we have to look at the data. So it's really key that cool that you're with us and listening today. So how we use skills data to conduct a learning needs analysis. So it is something that's really important to us, going in and honing in where we need to focus the learning and development. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a client of ours. It is an organization in the telecommunications industry. They have about 360 odd employees. They're both local in the UK as well as in Europe. And they were founded 20 plus years ago. They didn't have consistent skills data at one point when we started working with them, and they didn't really know where to invest their L&D in specifically. They trusted their gut a lot. And yes, as HR professionals, we have honed that sixth sense, that all-seeing eye of ours. We know that there are certain things, but it ended up where we needed to start looking at what is the evidence that what they were asking for in terms of the L&D investment was based on real data, real information, rather than just the intuition. We saw within the client that there was so much growth in creating, which was creating so many skills gaps within the business that the training also couldn't keep pace. So from looking at the data, we started understanding exactly where the puzzle pieces were sitting. And we also brought a picture of what those puzzle pieces needed to, how they needed to fit together so that we could build the real L&D plan that was going to support them in terms of their growth trajectory. They had a really ambitious business plan, but it didn't have a specific link with building the capabilities within the business. And if we don't build that strategic capability development with the goals of the business, we're going to miss a really fundamental link, because then we can't match where our budget is being spent back to real business results. And that's where going with off-the-shelf type of solutions, which this client we're using a lot more of, you could see that they weren't really hitting the sweet spots. If you've got any questions about the business, etc., thank you, Rabina. I have seen that you popped in the note that you're from Nottingham. Please just pop those in the chat as well. So we looked at things from two different lenses. We looked at it from the type of development focus. So what type of development was needed? We went in, we looked at all the data, we went and we honed through all the stuff, created the storyline. And what we looked at was, what is the strategic input? Where did we need to start building capabilities? What was that tactical behavioral change that needed to take place? Was there any remedial skills maintenance needed? Things where we could build up and fortify the skills or consolidate them in the context of that specific business. But underpinning all of that, at the bottom of our pyramid or our L&D mountain, we had to focus on those license to operate and that mandatory training that had to take place. Another client that I'm working with at the moment, most of their training is around that mandatory training, and it gives training a bad name because it's still so generic, but it is about compliance and ticking the box. But how do we make the license and the mandatory a leadership skill? And we've done some really great work around that. So building the links between the skills, the training, and the behavioral change so that we focus on what the strategic outputs are going to be at the end of the day really created a beautiful picture for us. But what we also looked at was what the audience needed and what their preferences were, and how we had to balance the contextual relevance with the volume of material that was available for just in time. So this really looked at how we focused our development, and do we just create things internally? Do we only buy external? How do we make sure that we hit those sweet spots to make sure that we get the right impact from the learning? Because some stuff can be generic, and we know that we do pick up a lot through AI and all of those good things as well. But how do we then translate that to make sure that it impacts the way that we're working, that behavioral change that we're wanting, which is going to bring about that business sustainability? Having done all of that, we were really able to hone in on what we needed to do. And the approach we took at the time, we focused on the STAR. What were the skills and the capabilities that were needed? What were the things that were going to move the dial in terms of the business results? What training was available? What training had people attended? How is it going to develop individuals? We then looked at the attributes, those behavioral components that needed to shift, that needed to move, that needed to be embedded in the way that we do things to make sure that we had that business sustainability. And how do the relationships work? How do they interact with one another? What we hadn't focused on, and which we are now doing with all of our new clients, is that intelligence element, which is really about your AI fluency, your data reasoning, all of those things, plus all the critical thinking skills that go around it. This is something that has really become so apparent in every single client that we're working with. And it is something that is being built into the DNA of any of our L&D strategies, capability frameworks, etc., and the way that we're approaching performance, everything. Because it's not just about knowing how to use the technology and the skills, but it's about those other transferable skills which are going to impact the effectiveness of you using and our employees using all of the tools that are available. So what did we do with this specific client that we were talking about? We rebranded the L&D approach as a strategic enabler to help keep growing their brilliant people. We put things in place with them where we focused on on-demand elements around coaching, there was departmental development budgets. There was a lot of the mental health training and other training around strategic initiatives. But we also had open sources that were in there, things where you could get some of those access to information, access to quick online trainings, etc. But we had specific skills builders where there were performance optimizers. At the end of the day, we're all running businesses, and we have to show that what we're doing is going to really make a difference. And by knowing what those skills were that we needed to build that would optimize performance, we could focus that training a lot more. What also came out was our focus on leadership development. And so many of you at the beginning of the session said that you are using AI around some of your leadership development. But how can we make sure that we are focusing on the right leadership skills and leadership pillars, etc., to make sure that we create that strategic excellence? So it's no longer just about doing your job. It's about making sure that we position the leadership structures correctly so that everybody's doing the right levels within their jobs. We're not down or shifting everybody's roles one level down. We're actually getting people to do what needs to be, what they are need to do, and where they super strengths are, etc., their superpowers. But the critical element is that purple block at the top, which was empowerment. How do we tap into those people managers? How do we excite them, engage with them, give them the skills and tools so that they can help embed all of this learning and drive the performance in the right way? Not by taking accountability for what their teams need to do, but by creating an empowered environment and a learning culture within their teams so that individuals take responsibility and accountability, and they start driving their own personal development and their own performance excellence. Really working, some really great results from our client, and we've seen increases in things like skills mobility or talent mobility, higher retention rates, definite shift in their employee engagement surveys, etc. as well. Real tangibles that we can then work out to pounds and pence in terms of the impact of those. So we structured our recommendations around the people development, those departmental budgets, and some of the open source learning and coaching. So just to give you some insights into that as well. But we went through a process of prioritizing that learning. What was low investment but high priority? What were the things that we could do? So we really took a structured approach in terms of creating that strategy and that rebrand. It wasn't just about taking the existing and replotting it. It was really about thinking about it from a critical perspective in terms of what was going to have the biggest impact as well. But we always know there is that person or those people that are behind us. And let's see in the chat if anybody can tell me, who do you think that he's or she's is? We should say they're behind me. Anybody think about who that person is in their organizations that is always asking this question? So what does this mean? What impact has this had? What is our return on investment? It's our CFOs. It's that individual who always wants to keep us honest at the end of the day. Not to say that we're dishonest, but always wants to know where their money's gone, what is happening, how is it benefiting us. So what have we learned over the years? Let's Talk Talent, I mean, running for about 11 years now, but all of us collectively have got so much more corporate experiences, etc. as well, that we know that the things that the CFOs are asking. The first thing is they want data, they want clarity, and they want brevity. They want us to make sure that we cover the real things and we're going to get a return on that investment. Otherwise, it's just an expense. How can we talk about investment if we're not talking about the growth and all of those good things? So these 4 things that we've highlighted in orange on the screen have really helped us focus that business case. What is the problem? What are the issues that the business is experiencing? But really connect those things back to those business priorities. Really connect those things back to the pounds and pence, the things that really start driving their business. Is it revenue growth? Is it customer retention? Is it operational efficiencies? How does our L&D spend impact those specific elements? Show how they link back to those KPIs like reduced turnover, faster time to productivity, etc. And you've got the data in your business already. Believe it or not, it is there. You just need to know which pieces to pull out on. We need to understand the difference between the cost and the impact. What investment is going to give us what return? And let's look at what are those quick wins, and using something like the matrix we shared a little bit earlier, where we start looking at investment versus impact, we are able to pinpoint what's going to give us the biggest impact for the most appropriate amount of spend as well. But our skills data can really quantify that true cost of the skills gaps that we've got. And the more data we're using, the more we're going to speak to the CFO's needs around what are the numbers telling us. But it's no longer just about the CFO. Those of you who work in VC-backed organizations, venture capital-backed organizations, at the end of the day, all of those individuals are still wanting a return on the investment, even if it's just the board of directors. It is absolutely in every organization. We're having to turn those pounds and pence over a couple of times before we spend them. But if as HR professionals, as L&D professionals, we start focusing on those commercial aspects from the get-go, our business case is written for us. But always, I love that quote by I've hit a blank on his name. Stephen Covey, there we go. Start with the end in mind. What are those success metrics? What are those things that will tell us that we've been successful? And the key for me is to ask the business, how would you measure the impact? What is important to you? After using the skills data, we are able to, and using AI, we can start drawing those links, but always ask it and always talk about it in the words of the business, not in the HREs, as I like to call it. The language of the HR folk, they always talk about the fact that we're in our own little bubbles. Let's get back into what it is that the business wants to hear, speak their language. We said that about our learners. We need to do exactly the same for our other stakeholders in the business as well. Right, it's not about spending more. It's about knowing exactly where our skills gaps are and using AI and our skills data to close them faster and make sure that we're a lot smarter in how we're going to close those skills gaps. And it is possible. We've seen it, we've experienced it with our clients, but yes, it's part of a journey. So as we come to wrapping up our session this morning, I know it's been a lot of talking, but if there are any questions, please, the chat's still open. You're welcome to pop some in there. Skills data does turn our L&D investments from a guess to a decision that we can defend, a decision that we can stand by, something that we can then talk about and celebrate, or help us calibrate and move in a specific way or reposition so that we can get the best return on investment. AI is already capable of running those skills gap analyses, building those personalized pathways. And it is important for us to tap into these. Ruth, great information. Yes, we have got a WhatsApp group and we will present, we will put this webinar on there as well. I'll put the WhatsApp group up later, but yes, the slides will be made available. Just hang on for the last slide and then you'll get the QR code to join the WhatsApp group. Hope that helps. Skills data informed learning and needs analysis can completely reshape how you're spending your budget. And we've seen that from how we have implemented that at one of our clients. CFO conversation grounded in data really helps us win the request for the funding. But start with with one source of skills data and then build on it. Tap into the things that are really going to make a difference in your business and speak the language of the business. So yes, ready to make smarter L&D investments? Take a look at it. We've got some great L&D services that we offer around strategy, etc. How we've done skills and data-informed learning needs analysis, etc. And I have popped the URL there for our website, so you can go and have a look at some of the stuff that we have done. We've also got, and we're going to pop it in the as a pop-up now for you. You're welcome to download our latest white paper on a recipe for a successful L&D strategy. So I really hope that that will give you some really great insights, and that comes from a lot of our experience, and there's some really practical tools in there. But what we're also offering is an opportunity, if you want, a 30-minute chat with me. We can go through what your issues are and see, maybe we can explore some alternatives for you to tap into. So please, if you're wanting, you're welcome to reach out to me with the greatest of pleasure, just for a 30-minute chat, and let's see how we can help move the dial for you moving forward. Our next webinar, which is coming up, is about what employees in the UAE really want to know, really want now. As you'll know, hopefully, if you're not following us via our newsletter or on our websites or LinkedIn, we've expanded into the UAE and doing some really great work in the UAE, but it's not something that we can't apply some of those learnings from in the UK or any of the other countries that might be on the call today as well. We've been using some of those strategies in clients across Europe, in the Americas, etc. as well. As promised, here's the QR codes if you're wanting to keep in touch with us and you're tired of all of those emails. I'm Becky. I'm so glad to see that you're feeling inspired. That is music to my ears. That's what I like to hear. But please, if you are wanting to get access to this webinar, etc., if you go onto the Let's Talk Talent Hub, the first QR code with the pink bubble, that one will give you access to all the recordings, our webinar slides, some tools, some downloads. But if you're wanting to really build community, please tap into our Let's Talk People, a really great community where we are chatting, sharing ideas, and it's just about creating that discussion process with individuals, building your networks, one of those key fundamentals of leadership development that we're seeing across all businesses at the moment. So with that, I've come to the end of what I wanted to share with you today. We've still got 4 minutes, so I am here if you want to ask any questions. If not, please have an absolutely super day. Enjoy the Friday before Friday. Enjoy your Thursday. And we hope to see you at our next webinar. But please keep in touch, follow us. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Thank you, everybody. It's lovely to have had you with us. Pleasure, Ruth. Very useful format. Thank you, Caroline, for that feedback. Feedback's always welcome. Breakfast of Champions. And with that, it looks like most people have left. Thank you very much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.